You think you've seen violence in wrestling? You think you understand what Jon Moxley is capable of? Nothing could have prepared the wrestling world for what just happened between Jon Moxley and Don Callis. This wasn't wrestling. This wasn't entertainment. This was a destruction so brutal, so savage, that it crossed every line imaginable. And if you're not furious about what went down, then you haven't been paying attention. Drop a like right now if you think Moxley went too far, or smash that subscribe button if you believe Callis had this coming for years. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began, because what we witnessed wasn't just a random act of violence. This was the culmination of months of manipulation, lies, and psychological warfare. Don Callis, the man who calls himself a family man, the supposed wrestling genius, has been playing puppet master behind the scenes in AEW. He's been pulling strings, destroying careers, and breaking apart factions with his silver tongue and backstabbing tactics. But Jon Moxley? Moxley remembers everything. The Death Riders. The faction that Moxley built from the ground up to protect AEW from exactly the kind of corporate manipulation that Callis represents. Every single member handpicked by Moxley to be a warrior, a soldier in his vision of what professional wrestling should be. And Callis? He tried to infiltrate it. He whispered poison in the ears of Moxley's brothers. He attempted to turn the Death Riders against their leader with promises of fame, money, and championship opportunities. The disrespect was astronomical. But here's where it gets even more twisted. Callis didn't just try to destroy Moxley's faction. He went after Moxley's legacy. He publicly mocked everything Moxley stands for on AEW television, called him a wannabe tough guy, said Moxley was living in the past, trying to be something he's not. Callis sat there in his expensive suits, with his smug smile, treating one of the most dangerous men in professional wrestling like he was some kind of joke. Comment below if you think Callis is the most despicable manager in wrestling history. The arena was electric that night. You could feel the tension in the air like static before a lightning strike. Fans knew something was coming. They just didn't know it would be this catastrophic. Don Callis walked out with that same arrogant confidence he always has, microphone in hand, ready to run his mouth one more time. He stood in the center of the ring talking about his clients, about his grand plans, about how he's the smartest man in professional wrestling. The audacity was unbelievable. And then it happened. The lights flickered. That familiar music hit. And Jon Moxley walked through that entrance with murder in his eyes. This wasn't the calculated Moxley we sometimes see. This wasn't the technical wrestler or the strategic faction leader. This was the unhinged lunatic who made his name in the most violent matches across the globe. The crowd erupted because they knew. They knew what was about to happen. Callis tried to talk his way out of it. Of course he did. That's what cowards do. He held up his hands, backing away, trying to use words as his shield. He called for security. He begged for his clients to save him. But nobody came. Nobody was going to stop what Moxley had planned. And when Moxley's boot connected with Callis's gut for the first time, the entire wrestling world gasped. Smash that like button if you think every word Callis spoke deserved that kick. What happened next was pure chaos. Moxley grabbed Callis by his expensive tie and launched him into the corner. The sound of Callis's body hitting the turnbuckles echoed through the arena like a gunshot. But Moxley wasn't done. Not even close. He pulled Callis up and delivered a series of forearms to the face that were so stiff, so brutal, that you could see Callis's expression change from fear to genuine terror. This wasn't a work. This felt real. The referee tried to intervene. Big mistake. Moxley shoved him aside like he was nothing. There were no rules anymore. There was no referee. There was no company policy. There was only Jon Moxley's rage and Don Callis's reckoning. Moxley dragged Callis to the outside of the ring, and that's when things got truly horrifying. Subscribe right now because what I'm about to tell you will blow your mind. Outside the ring is where Moxley does his best work. That's his element. The unforgiving floor, the steel steps, the barricades. Moxley whipped Callis into the barricade with such force that it collapsed. Fans jumped back in shock as Callis crumpled to the ground. But Moxley wasn't showing mercy. He picked up a steel chair, and the crowd went insane. They were chanting Moxley. Moxley, but you could hear the uncertainty in their voices. How far was this going to go? The chair shot echoed through the arena like thunder. Once, twice, 3 times across Callis's back. Each impact more vicious than the last. Callis was screaming, begging for it to stop, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. This was about justice. This was about every wrestler Callis had manipulated and destroyed. This was about respect. Comment below if you think Callis deserved every single chair shot. But here's where it gets controversial, and this is why you need to watch until the very end of this video. Moxley wasn't satisfied with just a physical beating. He wanted to destroy Callis's spirit, his reputation, everything. Moxley grabbed a microphone and while standing over Callis's broken body, he exposed everything. He revealed all of Callis's backstage manipulation, the contracts he sabotaged, the wrestlers he lied to, the promises he broke. Every dirty secret came pouring out. The crowd was in shock. Some of the things Moxley revealed were so damaging, so explosive, that you could see fans pulling out their phones to record every word. This wasn't just a physical destruction anymore. Moxley was systematically dismantling everything Don Callis had built in the wrestling industry. The reputation, the mystique, the power, all crumbling in real time. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button now. Security finally arrived, but even they seemed hesitant to get between Moxley and his target. You could see them communicating with each other, trying to figure out how to handle this situation without getting destroyed themselves. Moxley stood there, daring them to try something, practically begging them to give him a reason to unleash more violence. The tension was unbearable. AEW officials rushed to the scene. Tony Khan himself reportedly came out from the back trying to restore order. But Moxley? He looked Tony dead in the eyes and told him to stay back. This was personal. This transcended company policy. This transcended entertainment. This was about settling a score that had been building for months. The raw intensity of that moment gave everyone chills. What makes this even more insane is what happened with Callis's clients. The wrestlers he manages were nowhere to be found during this assault. Where were they? Why didn't they save him? The answer is devastating and speaks volumes about the kind of manager Callis really is. His own clients abandoned him in his moment of greatest need. Does that tell you everything you need to know? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Moxley eventually released Callis, but the damage was done. Callis had to be helped to the back by multiple officials. Reports say he was taken to a local medical facility for evaluation. The injuries were serious. We're talking potential broken ribs, severe bruising, and who knows what kind of psychological trauma. But here's the question everyone's asking: did Moxley go too far? Or did Callis finally get exactly what he deserved? The wrestling world is divided on this. Social media exploded after this incident. Half the fans are calling Moxley a hero for standing up to manipulation and corporate greed. They're praising him for being the last real outlaw in professional wrestling. The other half? They're saying Moxley crossed a line, that this was too violent, too personal, too real for what's supposed to be entertainment. Where do you stand? Comment your opinion below. But let's talk about the implications of this assault. AEW now has a massive problem on their hands. Do they suspend Moxley? Do they fine him? Do they strip him of any opportunities? Or do they recognize that Callis played with fire and got burned? The company is in an impossible position. Moxley is one of their biggest stars, one of their founding pillars. But they also can't condone this kind of violence, can they? Smash that subscribe button because this situation is far from over. There are rumors circulating about potential legal action. Callis might press charges. There might be lawsuits involved. This could extend beyond the wrestling ring and into actual courtrooms. That's how serious this situation has become. We're not just talking about storylines anymore. We're talking about real-world consequences that could change the landscape of AEW forever. Keep watching because you won't believe what might happen next. The locker room reaction has been fascinating. Multiple sources report that wrestlers are split on this just like the fans. Some wrestlers who have dealt with Callis's manipulation are quietly supporting Moxley. They won't say it publicly, but behind closed doors, there's a sense that justice was served. Other wrestlers are concerned about the precedent this sets. If Moxley can do this to Callis, what's stopping anyone from crossing similar lines? The backstage environment is tense. Let's analyze Moxley's psychology for a moment. This is a man who has always operated on the edge. From his days in the independent scene to his time in WWE and now AEW, Moxley has built his entire career on being unpredictable and dangerous. But this felt different. This felt like something snapped inside him. The calculated violence was still there, but there was an emotional component we rarely see from Moxley. It was terrifying and captivating at the same time. The broadcast team didn't know how to handle it. You could hear the shock in their voices. They tried to maintain professionalism, tried to call it like any other segment, but their voices were shaking. Even veteran commentators who have seen everything in wrestling couldn't hide their discomfort. That's how you know this was something special. Something that will be talked about for years. If you're enjoying this breakdown, that like button is waiting for you. What about Don Callis moving forward? Assuming he recovers from this assault, how does he come back from such complete and utter humiliation? His tough guy manager persona has been shattered. He was exposed as someone who can't back up his words when real violence comes his way. Every wrestler he tries to manage in the future will remember the image of him broken and begging at Moxley's feet. His credibility might be destroyed forever. The crowd's reaction throughout this entire ordeal was fascinating. Initially, they were cheering Moxley's violence because they hate Callis. But as it continued, as it became more brutal and more personal, you could hear the cheers mixing with gasps and concerned murmurs. The audience didn't know whether to cheer or be horrified. That moral ambiguity is what makes this moment so powerful and so controversial. Comment if you were cheering or concerned. There's also the question of whether this was somewhat planned by AEW or if Moxley genuinely went into business for himself. Industry insiders are debating this fiercely. Some believe AEW gave Moxley freedom to make this as intense as possible, trusting his judgment. Others think Moxley crossed boundaries that weren't discussed beforehand and AEW is now scrambling to manage the fallout. The truth might never be fully revealed, but the speculation alone is captivating. Let's talk about the historical context. Wrestling has seen brutal moments before. The Attitude Era gave us countless violent segments. ECW built its entire brand on extreme violence. But those were different times with different standards. In today's era of television, with modern corporate sponsors and mainstream acceptance, this level of violence is rare. That's what makes this moment stand out. Moxley brought back that old-school brutality in a new-school environment. The Death Riders faction is now more powerful than ever. This assault sent a clear message to everyone in AEW: do not cross Jon Moxley. Do not interfere with the Death Riders. The respect and fear this generated is immeasurable. Every other faction in AEW has to be looking at this and reconsidering their strategies. Moxley just reminded everyone why he's the most dangerous man in the company. Subscribe if you think the Death Riders are the best faction in wrestling. Social media analytics show this segment is getting millions of views across all platforms. It's trending worldwide. Mainstream sports outlets are covering it. This isn't just a wrestling story anymore, it's become a cultural moment. That's the power of genuine, shocking content that pushes boundaries. Love it or hate it, you can't ignore it. Share this video if you think this moment will define 2024 in wrestling. What does this mean for the future of AEW programming? Will we see more reality-based, intense content? Will other wrestlers try to emulate this level of intensity? Or will this be a one-time moment that can never be replicated? The company is at a crossroads. They can lean into this edgy, unpredictable style, or they can pull back and try to be more sanitized. Either choice will define their future. Keep watching to hear my final thoughts. The question everyone's demanding an answer to: what happens when Callis returns? Because you know he'll return eventually. Will he come back with an army of wrestlers seeking revenge against Moxley? Will he orchestrate some elaborate scheme to destroy the Death Riders? Or will he be forever changed, forever broken by this experience? The storytelling possibilities are endless, and that's what makes this so exciting moving forward. Jon Moxley has always been about authenticity. He's always preached about keeping wrestling real, about respecting the business, about understanding what wrestling used to be. And in his mind, what he did to Callis was the most authentic thing possible. He saw a cancer in the industry, and he cut it out in the most violent way imaginable. Whether you agree with his methods or not, you can't deny his conviction. Drop a like if you respect Moxley's commitment. This moment will be studied in wrestling schools. It will be analyzed in documentaries. It will be referenced for decades as either the moment AEW went too far or the moment they proved they're the real alternative to mainstream wrestling. History will judge this moment, but right now, in this present moment, all we can do is process the absolute insanity of what we witnessed. Make sure you're subscribed to WWE Reporter because we'll be covering every development in this story as it unfolds. The fallout from this is going to be massive, and you don't want to miss a single update. Hit that notification bell so you're alerted the moment we drop new content about this situation. This is the biggest story in wrestling, and we're bringing you all the details. In conclusion, Jon Moxley didn't just destroy Don Callis physically, he destroyed him mentally, emotionally, and professionally. He exposed him, humiliated him, and left him broken in front of the entire world. Whether this was justified or excessive is for you to decide. But one thing is certain, this moment changed AEW forever. This moment reminded everyone that professional wrestling can still shock, still surprise, and still make you question everything you thought you knew about the boundaries of sports entertainment. Drop your opinion in the comments right now. Team Moxley or Team Callis? Did he go too far or was this long overdue? And don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe because this story is far from over, and you'll want to be here when the next chapter unfolds. This is WWE Reporter, bringing you the real stories from the world of professional wrestling.